Hey guys, welcome back to part 6 of the F-150 project here. So today I'm going to start trying to get this old broken motor out and preparation for putting this old possibly broken motor in. If you haven't followed the channel or this series, then previously I purchased this truck. I knew the motor was bad. I crawled under the front of it and the frame was, rusty, which is typical in this area, but nothing crazy. I negotiated with the guy, got a decent price for the truck as it is, and paid for it, took it home. On the way back to here from my house, I was looking in the rearview mirror and the bed was flopping around. And I go to look and this frame was just shot. So I got about 4 videos on this patch job. Not even really going to call it a repair. Then fast forward, I was going through Facebook Marketplace and the guy had a 2010 5.4 with 200,000 miles on it for $100. The guy was a mechanic. This was in a limousine. He said they drove it in, it sounded fine. The main issue was the exhaust manifold was broke with a pretty bad leak, and you kind of have to lift these motors up, and at that point they decided just to swap in a lower mileage unit. So I previously took off the exhaust manifolds from this engine, pulled all the studs, put new studs in, installed the new manifolds. I have the collector bolts already installed as well. There's a few things that I'll need to swap off of this onto here. So to begin, I had some help over here. We got the hood off. It's very light, it's aluminum, but it's a little awkward. So we got that hood off. It's in the backyard laying down. I've taken all the clips out of this piece here. I got me about 200 of this size baggie and 80 bigger ones and some markers. For this, I'm just gonna tape it onto here so I keep track of fasteners. There's a whole bunch of stuff I gotta do to get this thing out of here. I will try to just show step by step, but I am on time frame as usual, so I'm not going to go too in depth. If you really want to see a good video of pulling one of these things out and putting it back in, the Ford Tech Make a Loco, he's got many videos on the 5.4. So that said, I got to get cracking, and I'll show you what I can step by step. Alright, second thing I'm doing is I got this thing jacked up, supported on jack stands. There's some bolts down here I need to kind of spray down with some penetrating oil. Let's see if I can see them. It's pretty dark. So up here that I'm sure you cannot see, never mind the raining rust, is the collector. There's a couple of bolts here, and there's some motor mounts up here I need to get sprayed down. And what else? There's a transmission mount I'm going to spray down that I may have to do something with that. It looks like I got a leak out of my drain plug. That's pretty awesome. So on the other side there's also a collector motor mount. Hopefully this is greasy enough that it covered up a bunch of rust, kept it from rusting. So all right, I gotta grab the light and get spraying. Okay, I've soaked down everything underneath that I can reach and that I think I need to, and I've pulled the boat battery out of here. Okay, got a drain pan under here, draining the radiator. There is a nut. It's like you can see it, it's white. It's a 19 mil. You undo that and it starts letting coolant out of that little port. It starts letting coolant out of that little port right all over the plastic and frame and makes a mess. PCM is removed. There's 4 10 mil bolts that hold the PCM into this bracket. There are 3 8 mil bolts that hold this bracket on. I went ahead and put an arrow on here just to show which side's up. And I've been bagging and tagging and putting stuff with what I take out. Airbox is out. There's 4 10 mil bolts, PCV, and a connector here. Move the power steering reservoir aside. You just loosen this one. It's got a notch. Take these 2 out and lay it over. I'm putting them back in. Keep track of them. I took off a bracket that mounts here to hold up the radiator hose. There's another bracket that goes over here that holds up the air horn. This will come off next. There's a bolt down there I got to take off. I'm having some issues getting that fan clutch off. So what I'm going to try to do is pull the radiator out first. And I went in and undid this. I went in and undid this, but it turns out that's not how you do it. You need a tool like this. Let's see if that's in front of. So it looks like 3/8 is what you're supposed to use. Yep. And that's how you're supposed to do it. So I'm going to screw this back in. And yep. So I'm going to screw that one back in. I'm going to get the bottom one off. Then I'll move on to the next thing to take off, which is going to be that bracket. Right here, there's a bolt down the side of the block. That you can't see from here. What's underneath, you just have to loosen it evidently. And then I'm going to take the cooling reservoir hose off, tuck it up under this hose here. That'll come out with the motor. Okay, radiator's removed. There's 2 10 mil bolts. One goes here, one goes here. Fan shroud. There's 2 8 mil bolts that go into the radiator. Fan clutch. I went and bought a kit, or didn't, I rented it. This OEM 27141 does not work. What I ended up doing is I got the electric hammer out here. It's got a concrete bit on it, but that's all I got. I just hammered it off and it finally let loose. So, power steering reservoir bracket removed. There is a 18 millimeter bolt. It's kind of tucked up underneath here. You just have to loosen it, and the bracket's got a notch where you get it loose enough you can pull the bracket out. Alternator's next. 10 mil bolt here, remove it. 10 mil bolt here, remove it. These 2 are slotted. I'm going to go ahead and pull them out. There's a 10 mil bolt that holds this onto the battery cable. There's a plug here to remove. You should pull it right out. Power steering pump's removed. There's 2 10 mil bolts on top, 1 10 mil bolt. 1 10 mil bolt is like stuck between this line, and you gotta take the oil filter off. And I laid on the ground went above my head, and I used a box end wrench. I highly recommend a gear wrench. That would have made it a lot easier. I don't have one, so I didn't want to run to the parts store just to grab one wrench. Lower radiator hose is out. Let's undo the clamp, work it out. Battery tray is removed. It's 4 13mm bolts. One here, two up here. This loom pushes into it. Gotta take these out. There's a little vacuum canister thing here. It just slides up on the back of it. So I just took it out, laid it up against here. Vacuum line up here, just pull it apart, get it out of the way. All right, pull the heater core hoses off. There's two little tabs. The left one's up and down, the right one's left and right. You just push this in and then you squeeze behind it on those tabs. You push this in, squeeze behind on those tabs and pull. It came right off. I had no issues with that. There's a couple PCV lines. There's one that goes from here up to here that's already disconnected off of the breather. The other one's here. It's like somebody's been in here. There's a little tab here you gotta push. Push and push over, then it pulls right off. I don't know what this is, but you gotta take this hose off. This thing here has got like, you're supposed to like press in on the end and pull. I couldn't get it. I just pulled the hose off the end. All right, I'm getting the wiring harness pulled back. On this side, you got all of your coil packs, 4 of them, 4 injectors. You got to undo all that. You got this connector here, goes down to the power steering line. I couldn't get it to come apart. I don't know what the deal was. I just broke the clip off. I just gave up. And then you also have, no, that one's for something else. This one of these. This one here is your oil pressure sending unit. It's kind of hard to get to, but you can get to it. And this is the one that goes down to your power steering line. Pretty sure that's like a pressure sensor or something. And then this one here, I don't know, I think it goes up to the like cam sensor or something. Yeah, cam sensor. I'm assuming this stuff only fits one way. Cam sensor, then you got that 3 plug there. Goes up on this. And then this ties over in to a plug. You just got to follow it. That's really all there is to it. Just follow it along. Things generally only plug in one place. I am pretty sure this motor's been pulled before, because like none of this stuff, none of these push-in deals for the wire loom were stuck in the block. There was, these bolts on the front were missing. So maybe it'll come out a little easier. Who knows? Okay, I got the fuel line disconnected from the fuel rail. Bought a pack of these disconnects. This is the 5/8, and just push it in there and pull it out. There was a bit of crud in there. I sprayed some brake clean in there and got that cleared out. Harness is almost ready to come out. Harness is almost ready to come out. When I get it out, I'll kind of show you what's what. Alright, intake manifold is out. There's a bunch of 10 mil bolts. There's a bunch of 10 millimeter bolts holding it in. To get it to pull forward, you have to take this water bypass off. But to get the water bypass off, you have to undo all the bolts on the intake, lift the intake up a little bit, then you can get to the remaining bolt back there, and then you pull that bypass off or whatever it is, and then you can lift the intake manifold up and pull it forward. There's a whole bunch of connectors back there. This connects up, all that stuff connects to the back of the intake manifold. There's a IRMCA something or other. I think it like throttles airflow or some crap. So that's gonna be fun to put back together. I still need to loosen up the air conditioning compressor, and I'm gonna get started. I think I can take those top bolts out of the back end there for the bell housing, and I got to get the starter out yet. So making progress. AC compressor is loose. One bolt on top, 2 bolts on the bottom, both 10 mil. Not that hard to get off. Alright guys, it's 11 o'clock at night. I'm about 12 hours in right now, but I stopped to eat and had to run to the parts store a couple of times. Right now I have the starter out. 2 13 mil bolts holding this in. I think it's supposed to be 3, but there's only 2. This is the positive. It's a 14. This is a 10. And yeah, just kind of wiggle her out of there. I got both motor mount bolts broke loose. I don't remember the size. They're big and they were hard. They're just in really tight spots. Well, the driver's side's in a tight spot, and you got to use a breaker bar. It's in there pretty good, and you get about a quarter turn maybe before you got to reset. That took a while. Passenger side one's bigger, and it's just a nut, but I don't know how much torque was on that thing, but it was tight, and it fought the whole way out. I have one bolt off of the collector over here. The other bolt is destroyed. Or actually, they're nuts. I got one nut off the collector over on the passenger side, and the other one is fighting me. So I think I'm gonna have to go get my torch set and melt those off. I still got 2 13 mil transmission bolts in the top of the block in the back there to take out. I haven't done that yet. Underneath there's a transmission linkage bracket. You got to take that off. It's got 2 10 mil bolts, and then there's a bell housing bolt right behind that, and 2 more above it. And then, yeah, I need to spin the flywheel around a bit here and get the, I need to spin the flywheel around here a bit so I get the torque converter bolts out. I got the access cover off. So that's where I'm at. I'm gonna get everything apart tonight that I can. And I'll have to just get up early and go get the torch set, so I get this thing out of here in the morning. supposed to be in the 70s tomorrow. It was 70s today. And after that, it gets cold. And I want to get this done. That and I got other stuff to do. It's now day 2 of the F150 $100 engine swap. I couldn't get this out last night. I couldn't get the torque converter bolts out because I can't get a ratchet in there. My set, everything was just too big. So this is, I got a Craftsman set, and by the time you put the socket on there, I just could not get her reached up in there. So I went and I bought this guy. It says low profile. It's not a lot skinnier, but it is skinnier. The button doesn't stick out, and yeah, it's a little skinnier. It should work. And if it doesn't, I bought another 14 mil socket, and I'll cut the end off a little bit for some clearance. It's gonna happen. So right now, Tractor Supply has a great deal on these gear wrench sets. It's 20 pieces, 60 bucks. Metric and standard sizes. You know, you can read what it goes, 6 to 18 mil, 1/4 inch up to 3/4. Yeah, pretty good deal. You know, I was over at the Home Depot getting this stuff, and they have just one set is like 60 bucks. Well, then they have this exact set right next to it for $70. I'm like, that's kind of poor advertising. It's the same wrenches and everything, but whatever. So yeah, I'm gonna get on to it. I have a little 3-inch cutoff wheel I got to get set up. I have a 3-inch cutoff wheel I got to get set up, and I'm gonna try to cut those 2 exhaust studs off. And once the torque converter bolt's out, the 2 exhaust studs are out. I have 2 bolts holding the transmission to the engine, and I should be able to pry this thing apart and start pulling it out. See that? Those are torque converter bolts. So that's loose. Yeah, that's skinny ratchet. That worked fine. I just used the socket I already had, and it was able to fit in there. So actually I used a combination of that ratchet and a gear wrench. So I got it broke loose with the ratchet, and then used the gear wrench to twist her off. So right now I'm still working on these exhaust manifold collectors. I think I'm like 80% through the bolt on the driver's side. But that little 8-gallon compressor runs that cutoff tool like 4 seconds, and then you gotta wait like a minute. So it's a process, but that's what I got. I'm not gonna go buy a 20-gallon compressor right now just to get 2 bolts off. Yeah, I have no idea where I left off. I'm kind of in a daze here, but engine is out, and boy, it looks bad. This cam is just shot. I don't know what whoever was messing with this did, because they clearly did not do a timing job, and they did not do phasers. Maybe they started and just gave up. But I probably could have got away with using these things, but I just didn't want to deal with, I really didn't want to deal with taking them off, to be honest. It's hard enough getting them off the other engine. So these are the valve covers off the engine that was in there. I got to put them on that engine because there's some broken stuff. They jacked up when they took it out. I gotta swap all these pulleys over. They look a lot better than the junk on there. I already took the motor mounts off. They're sitting on the floor over there. Let's see what else. Dipstick, I got that out. I'm gonna switch that over. I'm gonna go buy a bunch of brake clean and hit this with some air and just get this mess cleaned up as good as I can while I got the engine out. Maybe stab some paint on here. So I got the steering shaft out. I needed to do that to pound on that collector bracket on the driver's side to bust that bolt off that I partially cut out. So pulling it out was pretty straightforward, really. I just followed all of the Ford Tech Make a Loco's stuff on his videos and got to the point where I could get the engine and trans separated, and it pulled right up out of here. Really wasn't too much to note. I did forget to unbolt the transmission dipstick from the engine, so I yanked that out. So I got to make sure, hopefully I didn't knock a bunch of crap in there. I may have to go get a filter and drop the pan just to be safe. I don't want to go through all this work and destroy the transmission. So yep, all pretty much now, just a bunch of cleaning. Probably looking like install will be tomorrow. So we'll see how it goes. This is the old engine. I gotta drain the oil out of it because I have to change the oil pan. We'll see if anything comes out. Let's try a non-wussy mode. It doesn't look very good. Pretty creamy. Also looks like it hasn't been changed in quite a while. Then I'm going to let this drain out, and I'm going to get that pan off. I'm going to clean it out really good. I don't know if there's a magnet on this or not, but there's nothing on it. Okay, here's the inside of that oil pan off the old motor. What a treasure trove. Looks like we got some timing guides, some water, metal flake, oh, a little bit of oil. Yeesh. Well, guess I'll get her cleaned up. Hopefully the other motor doesn't have all this crap in it. Redneck load leveler. Here's the oil pan off of the 2010 motor. There's a little bit of shiny in there, but there's nothing that I'm really that concerned with. You're going to have some in there when, you know, from break-in and whatnot. I don't know, maybe I'm completely wrong, but I'm not that worried about it. Here's all the tensioner pieces I pulled out of that oil pan. Pretty gnarly. Sorry for the heater noise. It's 45 degrees Fahrenheit here, and I'm trying to get this done. Ran into another issue. So I guess in like 2008, they changed the valve cover design so they don't use these two holes on this side and 4 holes on the other side. Luckily the holes are there and tapped, but I gotta clean them all out. And it's like $300 for new valve covers. That ain't happening. So I've already switched over all the pulleys. I gotta get these valve covers slapped on. I'm gonna do a little cleaning up on the intake manifold. And I should be about ready to drop this back in. Okay, so engine's in here, motor mounts are bolted up. If you do this yourself, get the driver's side first. There's a locating pin that's really a pain in the butt. I didn't, and we fought for a while. We ended up having to lift the motor up on this side and getting that pin dropped in. I have 4 transmission bolts in at the moment. I'm working on getting the torque converter lined up with the flywheel so I can start pulling that transmission back. I got to change out the water pump. The water pump is different between the 10 and the 04. It's got a different clutch. The newer one's got the electric clutch, and that nut's way bigger. I was going to use the one off the old engine, but I dropped it taking it out. So yeah, it is what it is. So all right, I'm just going to keep plugging away here, trying to get some stuff bolted up.